Hey everybody, my name is Emmy Klein and I am an artist here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Now, surprise! We went on a hair journey, didn't we? I went blonde specifically to do this, but my hairstylist is amazing and made sure that I didn't fry my hair. Shout out to Rachel. Love you. My hair looks amazing. But yes, so besides the fact that I have fancy hair now, I have also skipped 2 weeks and my dog is now barking. Lola. It was not intentional. I had a huge project at work that I was trying to do as much as I possibly could on, so that kind of took a lot of my time. And then also in that first week that I was skipping, I pulled a muscle in my back. I thought it was in my neck, but it was in my upper back. I've never done that before. And if you've ever pulled a muscle in your upper back, I also wasn't entirely sure if I pulled a muscle or tweaked a nerve. It was kind of along the lines of like, I've tweaked a nerve in my neck before, and I've also pulled muscles. I pulled my groin muscle. That was not fun. That was awful. I know what a pulled muscle feels like, and I know what a tweaked nerve feels like, but I just wasn't entirely sure because this was just in a very odd new location in my body. Yay, 30s. So I was in pain and I was kind of out of commission for a minute. It wasn't that I was incapable of doing anything. In fact, I also attempted to film another video, but it was not these because I didn't want to be sitting in this incredibly uncomfortable stool that I have in my studio. Why do I have the world's most uncomfortable stool in my studio? I don't know, but apparently this is how we live our life. I don't even have dining chairs to substitute. Nope. So yes, I was just trying to make sure that I didn't re-injure that area of my back by moving funny or pulling the nerve or muscle, whatever it was that I had done. I just wanted it to heal and I didn't want it to get worse. So I did skip those 2 weeks just to kind of recover and also try to knock out that big project at work. So eventually you guys will see that in my work's YouTube channel in October when I'm in France. Haha! Because I skipped 2 weeks, I had originally had 5 weeks extra before I go to France, which beach dubs, this is how many days I have left before I go. So now I have 3 extra weeks that I can have as like a buffer, and I don't want to lose 2 weeks. So instead of just doing my normal 5 this week, I'm going to actually try to double down this week and complete not 5, but 10. Double jazz hands. So, that way I only really lose the 1 week instead of 2. So, yes, I'm going to go get started and wish me luck. Alrighty, so Monday we started rolling the die and landed on 4, which is food. And so then I pulled out this really funky yellow kind of color card, and I was trying to figure out what to do on that, and ultimately I landed on something tropical. I felt like those vibes were gonna go well. So I laid down my first couple colors, and I hope you're realizing that I'm painting a papaya and not human anatomy. I was so self-conscious that I actually added in that green rind on the outside as fast as possible, as well as the seeds. But I really liked how I approached the seeds. It was a combination of the cobalt and the violet and a little bit of that red for the base color, and I just kind of did a solid color and then dabbed in the blue, the lighter blue, the aqua blue, with that just to kind of make it appear like it's a bunch of seeds. And it worked really well, but I added in a couple more highlights and the kind of rest of the rind that makes it look papaya-y. Yes. And then a shadow, and that was my first card officially done. Now, side note, I did use my camera instead of my cell phone this time. I gotta get used to it, and I know that there are some focus issues that are throughout the video, so if you guys do want to see a up close shot of any of these cards, go over to my Instagram and you can see a very clear image of them. But on Monday I continued because I definitely was gonna need to if I'm doubling down. Rolled the die and landed on 1, and that's landscape. So then I pulled out this dark blue card, and I was a little stumped. Maybe I had to do a night scene, or maybe not. I don't know. But then I started doing looking up photos for reference, and I found this incredible photo of a waterfall in Bali. And you'll actually see at the very end, there's a little person standing next to it as well. So I'll point to it, and it's pretty cool to see how large it was in comparison. But I started off with just pure white, and then a little bit of the sky blue, kind of to indicate the haze of, the mist that was kind of floating around. And then eventually I do add in the green that just for some foliage and a little hint of like a foreground. But it wasn't dark enough with that dark blue background, so I had to tone it down a little bit with the jet black. And ultimately, I absolutely love this scene. It was so fun to paint. Hope you guys enjoy. Then we popped over to Thursday. Had another kind of busy week, but I knew I needed to get them done as soon as possible, so I rolled the die and got a 6, which is my wild card category, and I haven't had a ton of this, so I'm kind of excited. But I pulled out this really fun minty green kind of a color, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do with that. But I think this is probably... I feel like I cheated a little bit on this one, but it was so fun to paint this scene of this person kind of floating around in a little inner tube, like the whole card was just water. Oh, and you'll also see I did accidentally touch my paintbrush to the card there. That was me trying to scrape that color back off, which it oddly enough stained the card, so that's why I have a couple more water splashes than I had initially planned. But that hit it very well, and this was really, really fun, and I think was very successful. So, inner tube guy. But as soon as I was done with that card, I knew I had to keep going because I had already skipped a couple days. So I rolled the die again and landed on another wild card. I'm very excited about it. But I pulled out the next postcard, which was a color called Peony. So kind of reminds me of like a salmon-y pink. It has undertones of orange, but I still had no idea what I was going to paint. I actually did look through a couple of reference photos and didn't find anything that I was crazy about, but I just decided to paint from life, so I painted the die. And I actually used, I did pop up the colors again real fast there, but I used the same palette from my inner tube guy because everything was still wet. And I felt like I had kind of wasted paint if I didn't use it. And it did not have to be naturalistic, you know? I painted an orange dye. It was still really fun. But that was a fun exercise in painting from life. So I hope you guys enjoyed the card. And then it was Friday. So I had to do quite a few still, but I was determined, and I rolled a 3, which is animal. And I'm actually really happy I got animal because I feel like the background of this postcard, it was almost like a khaki color. but it worked really well for animal. So I started off with a pencil sketch, and I could not love this reference photo anymore. It was an otter being very playful underneath water, so it was actually an underwater scene. But he was in this like adorable little ball shape. I can only imagine he just did a cannonball. But I built up the layers kind of almost graphically, where I started off with my darks and kind of worked my way towards the highlights. And actually, I ended up using a lot more green than I thought I would, but he almost looked a little moldy. I don't know if that's just like a natural color for otters, but it was in the photo, and so I definitely wanted to represent that. But I do apologize. I think I lost some footage here where I started incorporating the actual highlights. And I also added a little opera red for his nose and toes, but this was my hands down absolute favorite card of this week, so I hope you guys enjoy this little otter guy. But I had to keep going for the day, so still Friday, I rolled the die again and almost threw it straight off the table, but it landed on 6, which is wild card. And so I actually pulled out this really fun, again, almost mint green kind of color, but this one, unlike the guy in the inner tube, this one had a lot more green to it. So I decided to go a little different than what I've been normally doing and kind of incorporate some text, which is a, saying I can really get behind. Plants, not pants. And ironically enough, as I added my greens for all the little plants and everything that I was drawing around the text, you can see I kind of get the fern kind of leaves going in and out of the text, and it almost ends up changing the words to plants, nut pants. And this is something I realized after I finished the card, and I can always change it if I really want to, but I wanted to leave it in. I want you guys to see kind of the whole process of things that I would change and things that I would kind of incorporate differently. I also think I probably should have done the plants first and then the text on top, to where I wasn't trying to carve around the letters or anything like that. But ultimately, this was just a fun kind of little doodle card, and I had, of course, to add in at least a couple flowers here and there. But I erased out all my guidelines, and there is my goofy plants, not pants card. So, if you guys have been counting, you'll know I still needed to do 4 more cards before the week was over, and it was still Friday, so had to do at least 1 more. But I rolled a 5, which is abstract, and I haven't had an abstract yet this week, so this was my first one. And because I had already painted the otter and my plants not pants card, I just took the leftover paint instead of pouring out more, and made a giant mess. Yeah, that's a mess. But I did realize that I wanted to incorporate a little bit more of the opera red and white kind of mixture. And this is where I think I save it. So I took an easy wiper that was a little damp and wiped out a ton of the background. And kind of almost gave it this kind of floating island kind of a feel. I like it way more than just the whole blob of color. But I, for the first time in this challenge, incorporated something that wasn't the Turner acrylic gouache and used the Montana acrylic paint marker in black just to incorporate some of these lines. Now, these lines are a direct result of me decorating my house, and is something that I've been looking to do on my walls and have yet to commit. So this was, I guess, kind of a little bit of a practice. So it was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. And then it was Saturday, Now, unfortunately, this is not the morning. This is the afternoon because I had been busy earlier. But I knew I had to get 3 more done, so I rolled the die and landed on a 3, which is animal, and ironically enough, pulled out another kind of a khaki color card. But this one had way more of like a yellow ochre kind of mustardy feel to it, which was perfect for my llama. Now, I don't know what the difference between a llama and an alpaca is, but this was specifically called a llama. So if it's wrong, don't come at me. But I painted this very similarly to the otter, where I started with my darks and kind of built my layers up. Now, this is kind of the beauty of the Turner Acrylic Gouache, that you can actually go back and forth between darks and lights because, you know, it's an opaque material. So if you need to kind of correct things, you can go back and forth between them. But that's kind of how I try to build up my layers in general. But I also liked to carve out the background from the shape of the llama, just to kind of really further define the shape of his body, and kind of give him a little bit of an environment to sit in. But I absolutely love him. I think he's so sassy. And llama. All right, 2 cards left to go, and so on Saturday after the llama, I grabbed the die again and rolled it for a 2, which is my very first portrait of the week, which again, the Pantone Postcard gods must be smiling on me, because this picante card was such a beautiful skin tone color. So after pulling portrait and after pulling that color, I had to find a picture of someone whose skin tone matched it so closely that would have been just perfect. Kind of one of those Pantone photographs that, had people that matched the card before. I don't know if you've seen those, but they are so satisfying. But this gentleman with his fancy red beanie on made me smile, and it also reminds me of the Wes Anderson movie Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. So I don't know what it is, but anybody wearing a beanie, I automatically just love painting it. So he had on this really high, black turtleneck as well, which I just popped in with a solid jet black layer, and then carved out around his head and beanie and shirt with the pure white, just kind of as the reference photo looked. But then I started in with the skin tones, and again, the way that I work is I start with my darks and I slowly build up my layers. But this one was a little bit different. I wanted to keep the majority of his skin tone the pure color of the card, but granted, he still needed highlights and he still needed shadows, just so that he looked like a fully rendered person. But I definitely used that jet black to kind of darken those colors, and then the shadows were a combination of the jet black, the violet, and that red, just for a darker kind of purpley kind of color. But the highlights were where I kind of was struggling a bit. I definitely used the orange and the red in different areas for different kind of color shifts, but I think I ended up putting in too many, and then I started wiping them back out, and I think that was a very good choice. But ultimately, I was very satisfied in how this kind of turned out, and I think he looks great. Unfortunately, after doing that portrait, was a little fried on Saturday. So I grabbed the die on Sunday and rolled it off my table, and then re-rolled it for a 3, which is animal again. It's been a very animal-heavy week this week. I don't know what's up with that, but I'm not mad about it. But I pulled out this crazy fun red card called Fiesta. So I was racking my brain with just any red animal. And of course, you go ladybug. And I was like, is that too easy? I feel like that's too easy. So hopefully you guys can tell, I decided to go with a macaw, which was super fun. And I also did not realize how much skin shows around their eye area. It's also super wrinkly and kind of gross looking. No judgment to that, you guys live your best wrinkly face life. But I approached this though in a similar fashion with all of my other animals. I actually did start off with the orange kind of incorporating my highlights, but I popped right back to the darks, built up my layers, and then I carved out around the shape of the macaw with that deep green, which was great because it's like a foresty color, which was perfect. And then just ultimately layered and layered and layered. His skin around his eye, I started off with like a pink color and then slowly built up to like a pure white. And I was not trying to really give it a very perfect, precise, every little bump on his skin type of a thing. I was just dabbing on color, and if it doesn't look exactly like the reference photo, no one's gonna know. Nobody is gonna know. But that was it though for the week. I hope you guys enjoyed all 10 of my cards. I'm so happy that I actually hit my goal. I was a little worried there for a second, but hopefully I don't have to do this again. But thank you so much for sticking with me, especially if you made it to the end of this. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. But I will see you next week. Bye!